Tesvav on base. Rav Huna. 5 lines to the top. Rav Huna. Rav Huna said, Matar Mafricha Yoinim. Who's the one who said these gamblers are no good traders? Rabbi Lazar. It would seem that's Rabbi Lazar, because the Tintam we learned over there in Eidios. Eidios is in the Sechta, all full of testimonies of various different Tanoim as the stuff which they heard from their previous generations. So Rabbi Eliezer there testified, Mafricha, what are you missing? Okay. Mafricha Yoinim, hey Rabbi Eliezer. So he testified that, just push hard, push. Mafricha Yoinim Psulim Mafricha Yoinim Psulim Minedus. Amrei Madakum Rabbi Yossi Madat said name Rabbi Yossi. No. He said in front of Rabbi Yossi. All that does Sanhedrin Rabbi Eliezer is he asked a question. Is this Artsui Sanhedrin also going only according to Rabbi Eliezer? No, it's Rabbi Eliezer the only one who apostles gamblers for testimony. Rabbi Eliezer said Kol Hi Chocha. The period here is out of place. And everybody agrees here in Sanhedrin that gamblers are apostle because it's Dinei Mominus. And Rabbi Yossi continued to explain. Rabbi Yossi said, Yodima, we all knew, meaning everybody agrees. Should apostle made this woman a gambler is apostle for a testimony which has to do with money, for obvious reasons. What is he going to come to testify about? He's a gambler, right? He's lowlife. How is he going to testify about monetary matters? He's going to lie, right? Where's the machlokas there between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbanan? El Kashem Shapasa Medus Mammon, Rabbi Eliezer, just like he's passing from Edus Mammon, Kach Pasa Medus and Nefashis also cannot testify in a capital crime. Even though he's much less likely to lie in a capital crime, he can't testify in a capital crime as well. And also, there in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, there's a parallel sugya, and says there that witnesses who have to do with Kiddush HaChodesh also like Edus Nefashos, because when things take place during the month, it has to do with whether we kill somebody or not, right? Now, ask Gemara, wait a minute, so what about the following case? It says, the Tzninon should really say like, Elohad the Tzninon, something like that. That which we learned. It says that any edus which a woman cannot testify, gamblers may not testify either. Matnisa, who's the one who said this brisa? It must be that it's Rabbanan. This is going like Rabbanan, and it means to say that Rabbanan who are machshir a gambler for dinei nefashos and for edus hachodesh, nevertheless they passel for dinei mominus. And this brisa is says that it sounds like there's some testimony which they are good for. Testimony which a woman can't testify, they can't testify, which meaning edus and dinei mominus. The inference of that is that there is some testimony they can't testify, which they're not like women, in which they can't testify. So what's that? Obviously, according to Blaise, there is no testimony they could testify. A gambler is possible for any type of testimony in the world. It must be that this is talking according to Rabbanan, and Rabbanan hold that, you know what, testimony which has to do with more severe areas than monetary matters, capital crime and such like that, they can testify. Can. Why would they be? They're less likely to lie. They'll lie about money, but they're not going to lie about.
But the stakes are higher.
Either rabbis, the stakes are higher. They're not willing to lie. Their ethical lapse only has to do with money. Their ethical lapse has not to do with capital punishment. Look at most people like that. Their ethics lapse when it comes to money, but not so much when it comes to din and parsha.
So the fact that more than a mitzvah principle.
No, according to Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Eliezer passes them for everything, but Rabbanan don't.
Yeah, I mean, if Rabbanan would be more than mitzvah.
Why is Rabbanan more than mitzvah?
Because they're not going to lie. They don't have the chutzpah. A person would have.
Oh, they don't have the chutzpah. No. Okay, that's right. Okay, you can explain that way. Okay, that's fine. Okay, agreed. So it says where Rabbanan Rabbi Eliezer, the Rabbanan passel for the passel. At all? Is that in fact the case? Says more, yes, Moedin lay, they apostle and Dina Mominus, Uplilo, and they answer, they argue on it about Dina Foshus and Eidos Achodesh. You're going to find a different shot, you're very different gears, a different shot, but it's not Gilin Ephraim here, actually, Gilin Ephraim Masechta Rosh Hashanah, but we're not going to get into it now. Says now, Rabbi Yoina said, you know, Kula Rabbi Lezer. Even Sanhedrin is only like Rabbi Lezer. He holds that Rabbanan are machshir gamblers even for Dini Mominus. Not like we learned till now. Till now, Rabbi Yoina saying for Dini Mominus, even Rabbanan can see. But Rabbi Yoina named Rabbi Chuna said, no, even for Dini Mominus, rabbis argue. Now, Va'asi plugta. But going back to Rabbi Yossi holds that by Dini Mominus they agree, and they only argue by Dini Nefashos. This is similar to the following machlokes. The time we learned, Eid Zayimim, Pasul Mikol Adu Shabbatar, and Eid Zayimim cannot testify any Eidus whatsoever. Divrei Rabbi Meir. That's like Rabbi Elazar, right? In other words, just like an Eid Zayimim is possible in the entire Torah, so to in our case, the Mafriach Yoinim is possible Chol Eidus Shabbatar. It's possible altogether. Rabbi Yosef said about Medvar Muiz watching to Zoyim Beidin to the Foshos. If he's found to be an Eid Zoyim by Din and Foshos, so we say he's also an Eid Zoyim by Din and Momris, because we certainly go down. So he's willing to lie by the more severe thing, he's certainly willing to lie by the less severe thing. However, Avanim to Zoyim Beidus Moment, if we find that he's a Zoyim by Eidus Moment, ain't possible also Eidus Bilvad. It's only possible that testimony by Mominus, meaning that he's still possible kosher for Dinei Nefashos. So Rabbi Yossi is like Rabbanan who created the dichotomy according to Rabbi Yossi the Amora. They create the dichotomy between Dinei Mominus and Nefashos, that a gambler is not believed comes to Dinei Mominus, but he may be believed by Dinei Nefashos. Says more beside Rabbi Yossi Rabbanan, Uray Meir Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Yossi goes like Rabbanan who created dichotomy by gamblers between Dinei Mominus and Nefashos, and Meir goes like Rabbi Lezer. Okay? Now, going on to the next part of the Mishnah, which speaks about Shemitah. Shimon says, initially, these are called the gatherers in Shemitah. When people used to have to gather in Shemitah because there were a lot of goyim who compelled them to do so, and therefore they had to dispense with Shemitah in order to save themselves. They began calling the people who were continuing to commit averos the merchants of Shemitah, because not only did they gather to sustain demand by the goyim, but they also did merchandising, bartering, wheeling, and dealing. Okay? That we only pass these people when they don't have no other profession other than that. That's our Rabbi Yehuda and our Mishnah, right? That they have another craft, another trade, another profession, or raise a kosher. They're okay. Hey Chavidim, what's the case where they have another profession? What are the case we talking about? Yoshi Boto Kosh Nation, if a guy doesn't work all 6 years, came at Shemitah Shvis, once Shemitah comes, he's still patient as Yod of a Noisim Perish Shvis, and he goes to work. Right, this year goes to work because he's going to make all his money in his illicit trade. So, right, his entire purpose to work, his entire work period is during the 7th year and the 7th year only. Is kosher. If that's all he does during the Shemitah year, so then he's possible. I'm sorry. So he has other stuff to do during Shemitah year, he's still kosher. If not, he's possible. But if the entire 6 years, he's a fruit vendor, right? Came to Shvis, and when Shemitah comes, just continues in his trade. He's a continues to deal now in fruit, but just this year, Shemitah fruit. Even though he doesn't have any other work, he is kosher. Why? Because during the other 6 years, he had other work. He's not going to lie, even though he's an Avaryan, he's a sinner, but he's not going to lie in court because he's not a lowlife. What's to prove he's not a lowlife? He's just continuing in his profession. He's not like the guy who just starts trading his Shemitah fruit during Shemitah. Obviously, he's not the main man for Havera. This guy's not as bad. He's just continuing in his normal pattern of subsistence. Okay? You don't like that? Okay. So, I don't like it so much, but that's somewhere says what it is.
He forgets about the calendar. He just carries on.
Well, it's pretty hard to forget about Shemitah, but yes, okay. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Baba is after Rabbi Baba Rabbi. Oh, I skipped. Did I? Rabbi Papa is after Rabbi Papa Shemri Losser said, Halach Rabbi Masisa. Our halacha is our Rabbi our Mishnah, who said that if the guy has another craft, he doesn't become posleitis. Iklis Rabbi Bar Zavta. Rabbi Bar Zavta was praised. The Marshmu that he said over halacha Mishum Nizormin named Rabbi who was younger than himself. So even though he was older, he said over a name Rabbi Avo the Sugya. Now, all that is one way of learning Mishnah. Tani Rabbi Chia L'chumra. He was machmir his spin on Rabbi Yehuda. He said, Chavida, what's the case where the guy remains kosher for testimony because he has malacha acheres only? Yeshim malach l'kosh a guy who's involved in his regular work all 7 years. Came and shavah shvius. Came and shavah shvius. He's a fashet biyodo. But Yodav, the extended Sabbath in Perish Shviz, Ava Pishieshi Momalach Cheres, even though he's got other work with him, in this case it's a puzzle or to Ridbad change the Girsa to Usser, meaning that no, that this is true about other Psulim in our Mishnah, but not people who deal in Shemitah. People who deal in Shemitah during Shemitah, they are not considered to be kosher. Okay? Because you look back in our Mishnah, when the Mishnah said, Adaf Tesvav Manav, it said, Amos Abizan Sheinu Umluselu Hu Aviyeshu Umluselu Hu Raves of Kosher, that might only be going on the Resha, not on the Sefer, might be going on the gamblers, right? But who says it's going also on the Sokre Shvius? That we don't know, okay? So that's what Gemara says here. He's Machmir. He says the guy is Sokre Shvius. It doesn't help him that he does his trade the rest of the rest of the Shemitah years. Now the Ritbaz wants to say that you can say like Rabbi Yehuda even by Shemitah if I understand Ritbaz correctly, if he's got another trade during Shemitah as well. In other words, not just that he has a trade the rest of the 6 years, but besides that, on the 7th year, his main profession is doctor. And on the side, he's no say but no sin but perish shvius. That'll be okay. Okay, because in that case, he has malacha acheres even during Shemitah itself. What he's arguing is to say that if he has another malacha all 6 years, and the 7th year Shemitah, then he's kosher, and then you say that's not kosher. You need to have both. During Shemitah itself, another job, and the Shemitah production as well. Now, Lo B'dah says more, in this, we do not say Rabbi Bar Zata, Rabbi B'Shem, Rabbi Loser, Halachik, Rabbi Yehuda, B'mas Nisan. The Mas Nisan. Now, there's an important word here, which the Ritbaz throws in. He says, Lo B'dah, Rabbi Bar Zata, Rabbi B'Shem, says, Halachik, Rabbi Yehuda, the Mas Nisan, L'kula. In other words, even though he held that where Yeshimon Malacha Acheres, that's okay, like Rabbi Yehuda said before, we said like Rabbi Yehuda says, and we passed that way, the gambler is another, a gambler is another trade, he's okay. So that's only in a case, it's not Lakula, not a case where his other work he only has during the 6 years, and now during the 7th year he confines himself to Shemitah work, but it's got to be simultaneous. In other words, he has permissible work and prohibited work at the same time. Okay? In other words, we don't say Lakula, that allows Rabbi Yehuda, that Malacha Acheres is even when it's not simultaneous but rather sequential. No, the Malacha Acheres has to be simultaneous.
Like you said, during Shvius, the
doctor does Shvius, right? Doctor Shvius. Okay? So that's the case which we'd possibly do. So it says more, wait a minute. Tam and Rabbi Bar Bazavta the Marshmua Mishun Zermine, there Rabbi Bar Bazavta said over something in the name of somebody who's younger than himself, which was Lakula, meaning back on Tesla base, we said that Halachas Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah, right? Who's Mekel, who says that if he has another profession, it's okay. So why don't we say the same thing here in this sub-machlokas Rabbi Yehuda, whether you have to have the same profession simultaneously or even consecutively, that we should say L'kula, let's basket in Rabbi Yehuda that as long as you have no Melach Acheres the other 6 years, it doesn't matter whether you have no Melach Acheres during Shemitah or not. What would we say over here? Now the truth is, the Gemara is leaving out a big chunk which appears in Masechta Shvius. Masechta Shvius, it says there, a very interesting thing. It says that once the Anosim came, once the people came to decree decrees against Shemitah, the Goyim, right, obviously, to make people plan during Shemitah, so people are allowed to do certain things during Shemitah. They're allowed to plow their field in order to plan Motzei Shemitah, that Chazal or Matir. And the reason, of course, for Matir is because it's only Shemitah Bisman, is only the Rabbanan, so therefore we're making for certain purposes. Rav Kook brought down this Gemara, the Shemitah, the Shvius Gemara, when he was involved in Heter Mechira, we see that one can bend the rules a little bit when Shemitah is only the Rabbanan. So name it. So there we paskin that it's okay. You're allowed to do it, plow during Shemitah. Now, there's even a Tzaddik more, which we shall see later on. It's brought down here as well. That even after the Gzeira is gone, the Anosim went away. Still, once they canceled Shemitah for this purpose, in order to raise tax money, whatever it was, that dispensation remains. Okay? It's a big chiddush, but there is such a thing. So the shaila is, why don't we just also pass it in this matter, l'kula, that once there was dispensation of Shemitah, so then even if a guy has no other work during Shemitah except this Isser Psochei Shvius, and he's not a doctor on this slide, it should still also be okay. So what's the obvious answer?
It's going to open up Pandora's box. Everyone's going to be Psochei Shvius.
That may be, but there's an even better answer, which is the one that Gemara gives. No? Says more very simply. There, meaning by us, the king's not compelling you to wheel and deal in Shemitah fruits. So since the king never compelled it, there's no reason for us to be makel on you. You have to have a legitimate Melach Acheres, that same year, in order for us to allow you to testify in court. But here, in that case, in Masechta Shvius, the king is making you pay the taxes. That's a different ballgame altogether. Okay, good answer, right?
Yeah, we can say it's a bottom line issue.
Right, but it's not just a bottom line issue. It's a bottom line issue with severe potential repercussions because the king is demanding the money. Okay, says more further. When they used to force us to work during Shemitah, they can do the initial plowing still during Shemitah. So certain Meshumad was walking down the street, Shemitah used to pass during Shemitah. Soon he saw people Ramyon Kuvase, that they were making heaps of grain, piles of grain. So obviously it was in order to prepare the field in some way, shape, or form for this type of activity, planting for the king, whatever it was, taxes. Amrulon, so he said to him, mockery. He said, ha, should be two words actually. Ha satu, you have deviated from your religious norm. Shara mirda, have you begun to rebel against the Kodesh Baruch Hu? Shara l'chol mirma kavas, have you begun to gather heaps of grain? Well, that must mean that you guys yourselves are canceling your fealty to Shemitah. You guys are not loyal to Shemitah anymore. Nevertheless, Rabbi Yami had been matir because of the compelling reason of the Malchus. Now, Rabbi Yaakov says, I had a kasha for Rabbi Yanai. I'm sorry, Rabbi Avo, sorry. Locate Amar Zira of Rabbi Yocham Rabbi Yanai. Didn't they all say, these fellows and Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Yocham B'Shem, Rabbi Shimon Yotzak, then they also say, Nimdu Balias Beit Natsa Blue, they went up to the second floor, Beit Natsa on Lud. And they said, it should say really, Kol Al Kol Atayra Akula. concerning the entire Torah, minayin, how do we know that Im Omar Oivik Uchom Yisrael, if a goy says to a Jew, to transgress any mitzvah stay in Torah, chutz mi avodas salim, except for the big three, avodas zara, kila raish shvichus damim, right? Avodas zara, licentiousness and murder. Yavor v'ol yorek. How do we know that you should transgress and not be killed? Meaning by the big three, you're killed. But the other ones, you're supposed to not transgress. So the important line is here in the Gemara, which is brought down in the Gemara Masech Shvius. B'chsiv b'chayboim says, live in them. So therefore, you're not moist or never anything else. Now that's not part of what we brought this down for. Now comes what you brought this down for. That's true. They know the not small. When it's you and the goy, and he tells you to do something against the teicha. But if it's in public, I feel a mitzvah kali, even a lighter mitzvah, lo yishma lo, you may not listen to the goy because of kiddush Hashem. Kegon, what's the case like that? Papas Lulainus, Papas Lulainus, his brother. Shanita and Mayim Bekli Schuchas Tzvua. They were given water in a colored glass. Lokil man, they refused to drink it. One of two reasons: either because the Pnei Moshe says it had color on the glass of Avodah Zarah. So by drinking it'd be like Marta Avodah, or a nicer pshat, I think, is the pshat of the Kavanoki in Shemitah, that it was colored. It was a red colored glass, and what people think if they saw it, that it's wine, and they would think Stam Yenom is mutter, right? The Yain is okay. So he says they refused to drink. I think they were killed as a result. Lokim land, since it's a public spectacle, they refused to do it. Amar. So he said, so Take. Actually, the question now, I have to tell you what the question is. So the question is, how come they can plant during Shemitah? Even to satisfy the desire of the king. It's Pharesia, it's in public. They should be Yeharek Vayava, they should be killed rather than transgress. Right? Yeah. So says the Gemara, no. There's a very basic difference in this halacha. Says Amar, he said, Lo iskavon, v'lo iskavon misham datzon. The Goyim who made them work during Shemitah, they were not motivated by any missionary zeal. They're motivated by that factor which motivates all humanity. The bottom line, they want to collect taxes. So when can you transgress barabim? When that effect is seen by the Goyim as renunciation of your religion. But if all they want you to do is pay money, so then we can cut corners. Okay? Says the Mother, there are masses in order to make a kiddush Hashem in front of them. But in the Kids Army, that's why they said 10. And I forget how exactly we learn up on the pasuk. Actually, I learn up on the pasuk.
This is not the norm pasuk to cite.
What's the normal pasuk to cite? No, not for Kiddush Hashem.
8 is still 10.
Yeah, that's how we know 8. No, yeah, I know, but this is the mitzvah of dying of Kiddush Hashem. What?
Doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, how do we know 10 here? It learns out of the first parak. The opinion parak Kamada Sorain. I think we had it, Taka. I forget we learned it out. Maybe it was from Edo there. Anyway, says the Mara Ravuna Barami Rabbi Ami. Ravuna asked Rabami, Aku Maushum Tzuma Kiddush Hashem. If one guy comes up to another guy, if that matter, a Jew comes up to the guy and says, either transgress this. Oh, I did skip. Sorry, no matter. It does matter. Sorry. Rabina Zira Chamune Pare Chore Chamra B'Shabsa. Rabina the younger, they saw him leading donkeys on Shabbos. Now, obviously, you're not supposed to do that. That's the law of Mechamer. It's not a Chiyamisa, but now I have to do it. So there was also because of he was pressed into service by the Goyim. Right here I asked you, Horul Meife, they paskin you could bake bread. L'artiknus b'shusa, for artiknus obviously some significant nobleman on Shabbos. Now, there's a whole discussion here, actually, among the Akroinim, the Gilin Ephraim brings it down, where the proper Gitzah should be not that they permitted him to bring bread, because they might only permitted him to bake bread, which may indeed be the rice, it might be they only allowed them to bring bread. To bring bread would be the Rabbanan. And that's what he said, the way that the Gilin Ephraim brings down the Gitzah would be Rabbina Zira Chamune. Oh, sorry, I went back a line. Rabbina Riosi Horan Lemeisei, to bring bread, like Tiknus B'Shubsa. Okay? So it's not clear here, if quite that second version, whether we're actually talking about partnering up with the Raisa on the death capital crime. Sounds still like the Rabbanans, or things that are not capital crimes. Anyway, be that as it may. Amrei Manamana said, Kashisi Kokuri Rabbi Yoina Abba. I asked for my father Rabbi Yoina. Lochet Amar Rabbi Zira, Rabbi Yochim Shem, Rabbi Yana, Rabbi Yochim Shem, Shem, Be'atzoda, Ninu Ba'aliyah space, not so. It says that they voted in Aliyah space, not so. So what's the kasha? The kasha is... I forgot. What is the kasha? They made some gzera. What was the gzera which you're going to ask? The kasha they had.
No, this is that if it's not the big three, you're supposed to.
Oh, right. That's what it was. In other words, why aren't you have to be Moser Nefesh for Shabbos, not to be Mechamer, not to bake, not to bring the bread according to that gear? So why aren't you Moser Nefesh? So that was the kasha, right? So it's the same answer as before. Lois Gavim Shabbos. So they didn't want to missionize you as Gavim Mechel Pit Chamim, but they want to have hot bread. Oh, it's your Shabbos, our hot bread takes precedence. So but they're allowed to do it because they weren't doing it for religious persecution reasons, okay? They just hate the Jews. They're not religious persecution reasons. Says the one, Kamin Rabbi. How many is masters? So once I breathe that Josh be down the whole Josh again. Rabbi the Kisar, I'm sorry, it's 10 to 7 the Ktarshis of Nesro. Rabbi Avuna boy, Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Avuna, ask for Rabbi. Akum, same idea before we had 4. Akum, Maushi, Tzuvim, Al, Kiddush, Hashem, the Goyim Atai Kiddush Hashem, Amalei, they said Tachus of Israel, they're only among the Jews, Israel, Mitzvah Kiddush Hashem, Vein, Akum, Kiddush Hashem, they're not required to die, O Kiddush Hashem. Says Mar Rabbi Nisim B'Shem Lezer Shama Lo Me'ado. He learned out from here how to know enough to Kiddush Hashem, because when Naaman was healed by Elisha, and he went back to his own country, he said to Elisha, please forgive me. God forgive me that I'm going to go bow down in my Goyish temple. So what do we see here? If he has to die of Kiddush Hashem, he's not allowed to go into a Goyish temple. Obviously, he doesn't have to die of Kiddush Hashem. That's why it's not prohibited for going into the Goyish temple. Is that clear?
No, not at all.
What?
This has to do with the goy.
Naaman was a goy. He came back from being healed by Elisha. He said, I'm going to have to go with my king, wherever it was Ben Hadad, to my Goyish temple to give thanks to my God, who's no longer a God I believe in. No, if Goy is Mitzvah Kiddush Hashem, this is one of the big three. What's he's about to do?
Wait a minute, but he's not Jewish.
But a Goy is Mechuyev not to worship Avodah Zarah.
Oh, but that's not...
I just gave it away. So he's going to worship Avodah Zarah. How can he do that? He said, Yorek Val Yavor.
That applies to B'nai
Ah, so does Zok there. That's what he's saying. From the fact that Elisha didn't protest, is going back to daven in the Goyish Shul. It must be the Goyish Shul, the Goyish temple. So it must be that it's the Goyim and Amatzuma Kiddush Hashem. No? Yes? Maybe?
No, I'm just thinking about.
I'm not familiar with that concept yet.
It's only here. Actually, we had him in Masechet Shvius many years ago, but that's not the point. That's the point he's making. That Goy is not Mitzvah Kiddush Hashem.
What was the point of this Amor we had way back when? We did all these things in order for the Goy to say Brich Elokei.
That's a different Kiddush Hashem. That's where the Goy has to be Moser Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem.
We hear it.
Yeah, you're asking this if the Moser Nefesh. Goy number 1 comes to Goy number 2 and says, either go be Megala Rayas or I'll kill you. Or either go be Ibn Azar, I'll kill you. Or either
So
be...
he still may be within the parsha of Kiddush Hashem, but he's not in the parsha of the Sirah.
We're supposed to be Mekadosh Hashem in front of Goyim. That's the whole Oral of Goyim kick, you know. We're supposed to be Mekadosh Hashem in front of Goyim, but it's not that Goyim are Mitzvah Kiddush Hashem. They're our audience. They're not the... We are the actors. They're the players. They're the audience, okay? Says the Gemara... Weiter, there's Mina, this case we had already, but I don't know if it's just back at Shmi's, but we certainly have the case. She was a tailor by a certain individual, in Rome. I slay Boston Veil, so they brought in the Veilotid. His guy, his employer said, eat. Says Amarle, so he said, Lay no achil, I'm not going to eat. Amarle, eat, located, if not, or no, to cut you, I'm going to kill you. Armalei said, "Hey boys, miktol. If you want, kill me. Because miktol ikatol the lena achabas nevel. I don't eat nevela." Armalei said, "Ma modelah. Who told you that the ilu achalta b'nekanim that the truth is I had in mind? If you ate it, I would kill you. Why? Because the immortal lines, Yudi, Iramoy, Aramoy. There's no such thing as synthesis. Either you're a Jew or a Goy. Right? If you're a Jew, you have to be a Jew. If you're a Goy, you have to be a Goy. To be a Goyish a Yid or a Yiddish a Goy is not something acceptable. So therefore, he was really testing him, saying, had he eaten it, I would have killed you. Because that means you're a assimilationist. But since you didn't eat it, that's why I'll let you survive. Okay? This is very anti-Torah Mata Gemara, right? All right.
What about the philosophy that you could be over on this?
So says the Gemara. This is that beautiful dramatic story. Says Mar, no. Says Mar, I'm Rabbi Mother said he will have a Rabbi Barbar's Mizimna Shama later over this Rabbi Barbar's Mina, the tail in the story, where the rabbi said it should be Mechol Hava Bado, he wouldn't eat the Nevela. In other words, we pass in you should eat the Nevela. Right? Lamaisa, HaKadosh Baruch Hu saved him from, in his case, would eat the Nevela would have been bad. But Lamaisa, well, Pialacha, one can't eat the Nevela, which is exactly what he said. Okay? Says more further. Tai Bizman is now the Mishnah Shemitah, which we haven't brought down, but which this also is there, talks about Zat plowing, Erev Shemitah, right? During Shemitah, in order to grow stuff to raise money for the taxes. So it says more, what about Bisman said there's no longer, I'm going to learn this like the Kavanaki there in Shemitah, even though there are some Mefarshim who argue on this, excluding the Mefarshim on the blot here. Says Umar, Tai Bisman said, what's the story about Taiv in our day and age? So, in other words, can we, now that Xavier is no longer here, can we continue to engage in this behavior? Or since the Xavier is gone, we cannot continue to engage in this behavior anymore. Okay? Xavier was, against plowing the first plow during Shemitah. So it says, the din is cancelled. But B'Tela Gzerta, and because even though the Gzera is cancelled, but despite the fact that no longer is any Gzera, once Chazal canceled the din, they canceled them. We find a similar thing by Neros Chanukah. It says Mishasa Shmad or Shminasa Gzera Minichal Shulchan B'Dayo. You don't have to put the candlestick outside anymore. In that case, we don't have to Bismanazah either. Now we're not in any danger of putting it outside. But again, Gezerta B'Tela Din Batel. Right? Even though the Gzer is Batel, and you can go back to the original thing, I put them outside, the Din is already Batel as well. Okay? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yirmi, Rabbi Yosar, Rabbi Yosar, Samar Meimel, Elam Gzer B'Koyma, Ad Shiyama Beis Nacha V'Yavatla. It's Leno. The Gzer is always in place until another base can arise, which can cancel it. Okay. Says the Gemara, Udakava saw. Now this is another machlokes Rabbi Yossi, even though it's not related at all to the previous case. Says more, it's an interesting case, but Kavanoki explains it very nicely. He says, normally you're Zoicha in Hagbah, right, and picking something up. But or chotzer, being a chotzer. But during Shemitah, the food in your chotzer is hefker. You can't acquire them during being a chotzer, right? Simple chotzer. Also, you can't acquire it by I forgot what I was going to say.
You have to be here.
No. Did I say by chotzer you can't acquire by chotzer? I don't know what I was going to say. Oh, by Agba. Can't pick it up by Agba. I mean, you can pick it up, but you're not going to by Agba. You know why that is? Because the only Agba works is when you know when you're picking it up, you're picking it up for the purpose of acquiring it. But this boss, he thinks it still is. He doesn't chap that during Shemitah's feel is hefker. He thinks it's still mine. So when he picks it up, does he have kavanas kinyan? No. So therefore, that doesn't make the kinyan. It's pretty his own thing. Okay, so that doesn't work. So says the Gemara concerning this, what might work. So it says the Gemara, Mishayit and Rabbi Yirmiyah Savar Meimar. Rabbi Yirmiyah said, Mishayit name l'toch kelev. Once you put it into your kli, it's yours because even though you didn't have in mind that your yard should be koineh, but your kli is koineh even about korcho, even without your awareness. Once you put something into your keli, it becomes yours. Okay. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yossi Sar Meimar. Rabbi Yossi holds Afil Nesunim B'Sol Kelev Lo Zachar. Even it was in his own, among his own property, he's not Zachar it, right? Serving in the day because he holds it's his, and it's not really his. I forget what this is talking about. 1 second. Oh. Okay, for some reason I forgot mid-sentence what I was saying about. Rabbi probably because I fell asleep momentarily. Rabbi Yirmiyah Savar Meimar, he holds, Vishinim B'Tolkev, I went back like, Vishinim B'Tolkev, Yosef Savar Meimar, Filu Tolkev, Lo Zacha, why? Because somebody in the day, he thinks it's already his. V'leistin in the day, it's not his, so therefore it's not koineh. Now obviously Machlokes is based in a chotzer of a person can be koineh without his intent, where he thinks it already was koineh already, right? And not just chotzer, but via something placed in the chotzer. You're putting in the keli inside the chotzer. So that's a shaila, is that going to acquire it would be a kinyan mashiach or not?
It's the same principle. I mean, if he's picking it up, whether he holds it in his hand or he puts it in the keli,
No, did I just say, I made a big mistake. Did I just say mashiach?
No, it's a half ball.
That was wrong also. It's chatzer. The shayla is chatzero shalom is a kohen shalom midaita or not. Hagbaz klaka not kohen except midas. Mashiach is kohen only midas. The shayla is chatzer kohen shalom midas. Because chatzer is very often kohen shalom midas, right? Forget for aveda for stuff like that. So what about over here? That's the question. What do we say over here? Do we say that you can acquire via chotzer, even if you didn't have in mind to be kohen at all, because you thought it was yours? That's what a barn hold. Or no, since you thought it was yours, the chotzer you put it in was redundant. It was superfluous. It didn't do anything. Okay? So it says more further. We don't answer the question. Rabbi Mana, oil prakula, going back to the previous issue. Ramana kat al prakula b'tzipori, when the general came to Tzipori, Hore meifa nachdom b'shuka he paskin that the baker should bake and would seem on Shabbos. The Rabbanon, the Neve, the Rabbanon lived in a place called Neve. Hore they paskin it for soldiers. Mafi chavia b'pischa. You can bake bread on Pesach. Okay, amazing, right? Says the Gemara. Amrei Yisrael Bun said, "Ani pi melech hashmor." I'll preserve the mouth of the king. Ani pi melech malchei amlachim. I, the king of all kings, I, the king. Eshmor shamar li b'Sinai. I watched that which HaKadosh Baruch Hu told me in Sinai. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Right. Al Dibras also watch the Dibras of Lo Yelchol Him Achrim Al Panai. Not to have another guidance. Shvus Elohim Lo Tzisa Apnei At Shvuas Salim, Los Yisrael Hashem Hashem Lokecha Lashav. I accepted that. However, now according to Pnei Moshe, these are Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah speaking at the time of their miracle at the fiery furnace. So he says, in terms of whatever Hakadosh Baruch Hu said, that we do without question. But kad hazeh, this individual who's a kad, who's like empty jars, right? Now, the Pnei Moshe points out there's kind of a play on the name Nebuchadnezzar, because Hanai, Mishael, and Azariah is play on, they're tying against Nebuchadnezzar. So it's a play. Kad is Nevuchad, right? Navo is the Nevu, right? And the Retzar, I don't know. But maybe Gavra, right? Nebuchadnezzar. Anyway, be as it may, Lamaisa, what they said is why we're not going to listen to Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah, right? Because the view of Nebuchadnezzar, you're like a dog, right? You have a larger bark than your bite. So therefore, they took the risk. Rabbi B'Shem Rav said, what risk did they take, by the way? And when the first came out alive, right? Okay. Says more Rabbi B'Shem Rav said, look, Rabbi Yehuda, that if the... I don't remember that they tossed or walked. Do you remember? I'll take your word for it. It's too late for me to quibble with you. Says the Gemara. Sorry. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Shem Rav said, look, Rabbi, that if they have another profession, they're okay. Okay, the next Mishnah has the capacity to bring us back to Yevamos. So none of us would want that to occur, right? These are the relatives, which are your postlators, Achiv, your brother, Achiaviv, your uncle's, your father's brother, Achimo. Sorry. 1 second. I don't know if it's material. Let's not worry about it right now. No, this is for sure, because before we have Balachosa, Sagiso here is your wife's sister's husband. That's what it is. Hein uvneim, the chasneim. They and their sons and their son-in-laws, your postlators for all of them. The Chaglabato and your stepson only, not his children and children-in-law. It said to Mishnah Kiva the Torah Kiva, Mishnah Rishona, but according to Mishnah Rishona, Dodo ubendodo v'charoi liyarsho. Anybody who can inherit him, which is all, of course, on the man's side, right? We don't passionate this Mishnah Rishona, but that's what it held, right? What if a guy was once a witness, but then he became was once a relative, but then he became non-relative? So he can still testify. You don't marry Mesa Bito Vieshlo Bani Vimena. Even if your daughter died, but all you have left is your son-in-law, as long as you have kids from your son-in-law, raise a car, it's considered to be a car if you can't testify against him, even if you really want to testify against your son-in-law. Once it says your brother, why does it say your father's brother? Right? Why does it say both? Says the Mara, Lomar could tell you, but no, b'chasano shel, take the word chasan, achi. It's going to tell us that not just is your uncle also, but rather you're also also because of your fellow also because of. I don't know, I began another sentence which I don't have no idea how I want to finish. Anyway, let me go back in line therefore. Why did to say both? It should be Aviaviv, that even the sons and stepsons of your father's brother are also to testify in your case. Okay? Says the Gemara, they're still relatives. Now, we came into the top of Yuzayim now. Since we learned. Now, here is trying to do so changes gears so consistently and systematically in the cases. And I have sympathy for his approach. So I will like him. So we came to the since it says, Baal Achoso, which is my sister husband, Matzuch Marachimo, why does it have to say your mother's brother? it's the same thing. Your mother's brother is tantamount to saying but it's tantamount also to saying you're the brother in your brother-in-law. Baal Achoso is the same thing as your uncle. I don't know if I can depict it without a diagram, but it's reflexive. These are if you know that their children are, you know that children are also right, and the next generation is also in each case, right? Right, b'neim chasneim, or fathers-in-law, right? Nechasneim is down a generation. Fathers-in-laws are up a generation. So it says more. Why do you have to mention the brothers of the mother, right? Lomar benova chasano, just oh, that's the answer. I'm sorry. Let me go back to the beginning of the page. It says barachoso. Again, this Shadrus change. It says your sister's husband. Matzur lemisei achimo. So why does it have to say your mother's brothers? You know what? I really don't know why it's reciprocal. I thought I knew what's reciprocal, but I can't figure it out now. It's two different lines, right? Well, I have it on the side. The reason, okay, because your uncle.
Because it's from the mother's side. It could be different father.
What? He changed just to the Baruch also. It's hard for me to figure this out without pen and paper. But the way the Shadrus says it, he says, I got it. If your sister's son is also to you, Baruch also means not just your sister's husband is also, but also your sister's son. So that means your nephew is also to you, right? What are you to your nephew?
Uncle.
Achi imo. That's the case. If Baal Achoso's son is also to you, because that's our Mishnah Ben, right? That means you, being Achi imo, are also to him. So that why need both cases? One case would indicate the other case. Okay? Okay, the Gemara holds ask the kasha. So it says, the Gemara, I'll tell you why. Lomar benova chasono shel, it should be achimo. It means to say the cousins are also each other, because we want to know that the cousins are also. That would have told us a nephew can't testify an uncle and a nephew. But I know the cousins are also each other. That's why we need to say cases from which we deduce cousins. Okay, so we need to mention every case which you learn cousins. Same thing next three cases. Became a thing once it says take them on faith. Became the thing is he changes all three. Came it says chamiv, this should say his father-in-law. Matzur lemisa. What does it have to say? Baal achoso, your brother-in-law. If your father-in-law is also your brother-in-law is also as well. Lomar, so it comes to tell us b'no b'chasono shel. The word chasan is superfluous. Comes to tell us that the son and son-in-law of Baal achoso are also as well. Comes to tell us that those two are also the cousins. Now it says more. The same idea. Once it says, here it should say agiso. Once it says your brother-in-law, once it says your brother-in-law, matzurch lemiste baal chosimo. Why does it say your uncle by marriage? Lomar, so to say the same thing, but no b'chasono, to tell us the idea of about the son and son-in-law baal chosimo. Now. It's a vav hey at the beginning of the next word to the vav thing, but it should just be tninon. Tninon, we learned. Chorgo levato, your stepson himself. Rav says, I don't understand. Im chasan, it should be giso. If your brother-in-law's son-in-law is also, right, Baal chorgo so, lo koshkein, shouldn't your step-son-in-law become usher to you? Again, If your brother-in-law's son is also upon you, which is your nephew, why? So certainly your step-son-in-law should also become also on you, right? Now the Gemara understands at this point, which is a mistake, that your brother-in-law's son is also on you, even if he's not your nephew by blood. He's not your sister's son. He's your brother-in-law's son by another woman. Okay? So Gemara says your brother-in-law's son by another woman is also upon you, even though he's not really your nephew. It's only indirectly your nephew. So your stepson. Your stepson-in-law, he's not your nephew, true. I mean, it's not your son, but he's indirectly related to you because you married his mother, right? So you should be also to testify on him. So why did you say chorgel about only your stepson? Sounds like not your stepson-in-law. What's the difference? So it says more tipater. So Gemara says one answer. Sheyesh lo bari chasani mimenu. This is only where it's only usher your nephew when it's your nephew, meaning that your sister had these sons and sons-in-law, as opposed to so they're enochanami. If it's not from your sister, then you're talking not usher, and that's why you're also not usher your stepson-in-law. Now agiso, it says. Let's go with it. Gemara says really a little bit better into this principle. Agiso, your brother-in-law, Istani Tani, that those who said that Agiso is a case of Yesh L'Bari Chasanim, where you have he has sons and sons-in-law. He said that those ain't L'Bari Chasanim. He doesn't have sons and son-in-law. What does that mean? Manam Yesh L'Bari Chasanim. He who says that he has sons and sons-in-law, that's meaning that they're pasul edus, that's on you, and your pasul is on them, that's only if mimeno, they're actually your sister's children. Meaning that they're not pasul to you for testimony, and you're not pasul for them, it's imokamach, when those sons and sons-in-law come from another wife, not for your own sister. Okay? Rav was his nephew. Navak, he went Lemesre Mashkon to soak hides. Rabbi Chia, Rabbit, Rabbi Chia gave. Everybody knows Rabbi Chia took hides and wrote Sifrei Torah and went to cities and taught kids the Sifrei Torah. Taught each one kid one Torah, and they used to teach each other. Has any recollection of that? Gedolim Ma'aseh Chia. They used to go Shalom Tishtachach Torah Yisrael. So used to hunt the deer and make the hides. What?
I remember him teaching separate parts.
Right, that's the whole story. So Rav went for his uncle to go make the hides, right? So he went to a place. Vash Rabbi Yochanan, found Rabbi Yochanan. Lo and behold, Yosu Makshi sitting asking Kasha. Tina, we learned Chorgo Levado, only your stepson. What about Ish's Chorgo? Can you testify for your stepson's wife? Bao Mao. And Bao Chorgo, so arguing the priest were, what about your stepdaughter's husband? And what did Rav say? Or Rabbi Yochanan said actually, Isha kabalo bal ki ishto. It says Chorgo Levado doesn't have to mean the Chorgo Levado. It means Chorgo, not his son or son-in-law, unlike the other relatives in the Mishnah. But even the Chorgo, you're also testifying his wife, and if it's a stepdaughter, you now have to testify her husband. Okay? Rav Chisda boy. The conversation is Choreg about Kisha. The wife of Choreg is like Choreg, and the husband is like the wife. Rechisa boy, Rechisa says, Dor Shlishi Maushia Mutter Be'eshas Rishon. Can you testify about your great uncle? And then what gives an example, or a great niece. Moshe. Now the other Yisos here, but I don't want to get into them. Moshe Maushia Mutter Be'eshas Pinchas. Could Moshe testify for his grandniece? Well, who was his grandniece? Pinchas' wife, because Pinchas was his great nephew, right? So a grandnephew. So says Mar Reish Lakish Amar, the Kavling Dor Sheni v'Dor Shlishi. You know what? You can go second generation once it's split beyond first cousins, right? You have like second generation, a first cousin once removed, or a second cousin. So once you go beyond cousins, so you should have said Makabli Dor Sheni for the Dor Shlishi Midochak. Second cousins and one cousin, and first cousin once removed, we accept under pressure when we don't have any other testimony. Rabbi Yochanan Afilu Mirevach. It says, I don't remember the Bavli, says it's not even a problem. And the more the Bavli does discuss Shlishi B'Sheni, Shlishi B'Rishon, so maybe there are some parallels, but I don't remember what the parallels is. Okay, says the more Kechado, there was one case, it was really a new case. Kechado is one case of Agisid Rav Huna, Havli Dina Chabarnash, a certain period of time that the ex-brother-in-law of Rav Huna had a court case with a certain individual. Alright, so the guy said, the ex-brother-in-law said, Come out the Rav Huna Amar Anamakabal Alai. Whatever he says, I'll accept. Shom Rav Huna said, V'amar, he said, it should be Hodein Yodah. He knows the halacha, meaning that the halacha is Korab Shnisrachik is okay. If he was once my brother-in-law, but ain't my brother-in-law no more, I can sit in judgment upon him. Now, there's not always true, okay? As we know more, we'll see momentarily. Kshem Shamru, just like they said, and here the Gil Shaidah so changes the gear order. Kshem Shamru milamaton kachamula malon, meaning that just like they said below, if you don't, if your daughter died, but you have children from your daughter and her husband, so her husband still remains your son-in-law, right? If you have children, it still remains your son-in-law, right? And grandchildren still remains your son-in-law. So too, if you have a lamala, right? If your father's sister dies, but you still have an uncle, right? Uncle who was an uncle by marriage, and you have cousins to that uncle, then that uncle is still also to you. Okay? So, and that's true here also about Rav Huna's brother-in-law. It's only okay that we don't only say ex-brother-in-law you can sit in judgment if you have no nephews for that brother-in-law. But if you have nephews, then you can't sit in judgment. And the same thing, if you have an uncle, you can only sit in judgment upon him, or testify about him, same thing. If it's you have no cousins through him. But if you have cousins through him, it means it's uncle and it's no good. Okay? So then Yerushalmi Rav said, Halacha Rabbi Yehuda, which is what we just said, that if you may so beat of Yeshabari man and raise a korb. Okay, Holy Vasoni. Somebody who loves you, somebody who hates you. Postlaters. Ezo Oev, so Shashvina, your best man. Vasone, Koshaloti Remo Shloshasian baby. He didn't speak to you for 3 days because he hates your guts. Amrlo, they said, Chas v'sholom lo nechshudu Yisrael akach. I'm so it's not suspect that they're going to lie in testimony because they love somebody or they hate somebody. Now, it says tomorrow, Rabbi Tavlai, Rabbi Avinu Shem Rav says, when is he Yeshua Shavin? For all Shivas Yimei Mishta. Shivas Yimei Mishta Shanu. As far as on the Yerushalmi, the Bible says it's only the first day. There's only a Shoshavin for the first day, the day of the Chasna. But the Bible, Yerushalmi holds also shares 7 days. Okay, we did 2 blot. I thought we'd actually get to the bottom of the page, but we started late. We'll stop here for this evening.
What time do you testify anymore?
About 9 o'clock. I have to be there at 8:30.